because this is a story all about how our life got twisted, turned upside down. I'd like to take a minute, just sit right there. We'll tell you how we became the proud parents of a baby girl with brown hair. And
boom! Ooh, I got it.
All right. Now we're ready.
For those of you who don't know, I'm Amber.
I'm Abe.
Yes, that was very official. But we have been in this adoption process for 2 years, and for those of you who have followed along and been huge support, we just really can't thank you enough for your prayers, your financial help, your support. It's just amazing to me. Even the little tiny things that people have done to them that they might genuinely think, oh, this really is insignificant, to us it was really monumental. So every single thing, we just really want to, from the bottom of our hearts, first say thank you. And for those of you who don't know, we want to give you a little more of the backstory before we kind of really dig into what a lot of people are waiting to hear, how this beautiful girl came to be our daughter.
Yeah, because what I think is important is, we started talking about the process of adoption in Washington State back in 2014, 2015.
Yeah.
It's been in our hearts for a while, but that's when we started looking into different agencies. Ended up going through a couple different things, but we've moved states a couple times, had people in and out of our lives all over, still kind of checking in, doing other stuff. So we just kind of want to share the story for people that may not know anything and those that have been part of different segments along the way, because we're at a pretty exciting time right now.
Yes, but it always hasn't been like that. And I think that those are the parts that really make this part that much more. And so I think they're really beneficial. So just to give you a very short version, or this video would be hours long, is when Abe and I met at 17 years old and we started dating, one of our very first conversations was me asking him if he had the desire in his heart to adopt one day, because ever since I was a little girl, God had placed that on my heart. And if he didn't have that, even at, that young of age at 17, then, we either needed to fix that or there was no reason for us to keep talking. Thankfully he did, obviously. And, his name after Abraham in the Bible. And so that was always heavy on his heart. If you're not familiar with that story, go check it out. But he had always had that, right? If you want to say something.
Yeah, and you heard it here. Since early on in our relationship, Amber was really interested in having a family with me one day, so that's important. But yeah, as a child, Abram in the Bible is kind of the infertility story that kind of comes into my mind about thinking of him, and I'll just, since that's my name, just kind of resonated with me, and I always wondered, what would I do if that's what my life was looking at, kind of what options are out there. We had a bunch of churches come, and they'd be talking about kids and the stories and the orphanages, so it always weighed kind of on my heart for adoption as a child, and just something that I guess my heart was already being shaped to, and so Amber kind of helped solidify that because she was in a similar position.
Yeah, so that was kind of the foundation of where it started. I remember when I was little, I always really felt like China one day would come into play, and we would adopt a little girl from China, and I asked my mom how much it was, and she would tell me how expensive it was, and I would save my quarters so that I could have enough money when it was time. And so, when we were very young, God really just placed this on our hearts, and so that was really cool that we both really shared that. And so, after Abram and I had gotten married and had both finally come to a place at the same time of wanting to really grow our family, and we started and just really realized that it wasn't happening. So after a while, we started, seeking some outside medical help. And it was one of those situations where we found out, it was kind of the best and the worst of what you want to hear, that there is a problem, but we don't know what it is. And so the good news was we didn't have this huge problem in front of us that we had, a reason as to why this was happening. But on the same token, we don't know what the problem is. And so that was kind of just as hard, because then you don't have a guide map to say, okay, so now I'm going to start this and do this. you don't know. And so we just started different processes kind of to see what would work. So we started on some different medications really to help us, and would go in to be monitored in labs, and that really became our life for a while. And I remember we were getting ready to move, and I told Abe, like, I can't do this right now. Like, I feel like a crazy person, which I'm sure I wasn't. Like, I'm sure I just really held myself together well, right?
Yeah, she's oftentimes harder on herself. She was just easy breeze most of the time there.
So anyways, I just said, you know what, after this set of treatments, I need to take a knee. Like, I need to sit out, we need to focus on moving. And I woke up, my birthday was coming up, and I woke up the morning of my birthday, and I started shaking my husband, screaming, we're gonna have a baby, we're gonna have a baby, I know we're gonna have a baby. And it's like 6 a.m., so he's a little bit confused. And like, what's going on? And I told him, I said, I just had the most vivid dream of God giving us this baby. And my grandmother, who was hugely influential in my life, had passed away. And she met me, and we were just meeting and talking, and I won't go through the whole dream. I could, but then we'll keep you here a long time. But it was just the sweetest moments, and she just kept telling me that it was gonna be okay. And I didn't know what she meant. Like, I was so confused. I just wanted her to stay and keep hugging me and kissing me, and just tell her all about my life. And she said, it's gonna be okay, but I need to get back up to heaven. And she turned around, and she was pushing a stroller. And I woke Abe up, and I said, that's my baby in that stroller, and we're gonna have a baby. And the very next month, before we had moved, we found out that we were pregnant with James Thomas. And I had prayed so much, because anyone who struggles with infertility knows that the rejection side of it is real, and you can only see so many no's and so many negative pregnancy tests. Like, until you just want to break. And I had prayed to God before. I said, please, just you tell me about my babies. I want you to be the one to reveal that we're going to have babies, because I can't keep looking at these tests. And it was just so incredible. And so we had James Thomas, and he is just, oh my goodness, one in a million, one in a billion. He is amazing. And and we had him, and we've always had a desire to have a big family. One of us even a lot bigger than the other. I started out at, I think, 8. Did I start out at 8 or more? I might have started out at 12 kids.
I think you started out at 12, then 8. And
8.
I felt like we compromised on 5.
I don't think we did. I think Abe thinks we compromised at 5. I think we're still figuring that number out.
We did. I actually have it written down and saved somewhere.
We'll just see. But the important part is that we had James Thomas, and we had a desire to continuously grow our family. So, everyone tells you that once you give birth, or everyone told me that your body just now knows what to do. And I kept seeing that in so many of my friends who dealt with infertility, and then they would just get pregnant. And it was just like, oh my goodness, we never thought it would happen this fast, or we didn't know what to expect, and they were just pregnant. And so we kind of thought that would happen to us. Abe was deployed in Afghanistan. He got home, and then everyone gets pregnant, when their husband gets home from war. And, so we were excited. And, kind of we went through the same process again, where what is happening? This isn't working.
Yeah, I would say we went through about a year of different things, kind of doing testing to get to where we ultimately became pregnant with James Thomas. And so when we came back, we were like, well, we want to skip steps 1 through 9. We're just going to start at step 10. We know that this works, so we're going to start out there. So
and before we really started that, we really thought, this isn't working. Are we supposed to start adopting now? Because we'd always wanted to adopt. And we just thought, is that meant to be now in our story instead of down the road? So we met with an adoption agency, the one that we went through this time as well. And, we really started filling out the paperwork and moving forward. And Abe and I were really just praying about it. We very much try to be intentional about every decision that we make, especially this huge of one. And I'll never forget, we were praying about it, and I kind of started to feel my heart shift, but in a way that I didn't want it to shift. And Abe's was shifting as well. And thankfully he was vocal about it and said, I really feel like the Lord is calling us to continue on in our infertility journey, and basically to go all the way if we needed to do IVF, in vitro fertilization. And I didn't want to say that I felt that way, because it is, we won't get into all of that, but it is very invasive. Was a huge concern of mine. I had a very huge real fear of needles before all of my infertility issues, which is completely gone now. So hey, there's that.
Yeah, and I still don't know why. It was one of those things where if you told me like 30 days before I told her that's what I'd be saying, I probably would have kind of just like laughed at you and been like, well, I don't think that's the right thing. Like, my wife is terrified of needles. I don't know much about it. I don't know. But then, I don't know, it just started kind of circling back in my head. I started doing some research and prayed about it more, and just kind of felt like we were led on this way. But it still wasn't something that I was going to decide, because my role in that process is a lot smaller, we'll say.
So he presented it, and I was hesitant for a lot of reasons, but my biggest hesitation was that it's a lot of money, and I felt like if we were going to put that much money somewhere, it needed to go into an adoption, because that to me was, it was going to happen. Like, eventually we would get a baby. Well, with IVF, that was very uncertain. And I really just had to pray about it. And I really felt like God telling me, this is bigger than just you getting a baby. This is bigger than me blessing your family with another child. And you need to trust me in the outcome. And so we did. So we did that. And through that, the Lord placed on my heart that we start making our walk public. Which, we're not super private people, but that was huge for us to really want to, to really put your story out there and to really bring people on our journey meant they were going to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. And if it didn't work, they were going to see that. And that was very hard for us, but we just really leaned into what the Lord was calling us to do, and that His ways are higher. And so...
Yeah, I was strongly opposed to it at the beginning, voiced my concerns, the reason why, and Amber didn't really, she didn't validate any of my fears. Were just like, no, this is what we're going to do. And I kind of realized that I was allowing fear of unknown, uncertainty, being vulnerable in a new way, and something that was challenging, being vulnerable for questions and different people's opinions and things. And it was something that it wasn't anything that I kind of thought that I was going to be excited about participating in. And even while we were doing it, there was times that I was like, I just don't know if I want everybody who knows us to know that in day 5, we're going to know this. In day 7, we're going to know this. And just all these things along the way. But we were just kind of reminded all throughout the process, and Amber was very encouraging through it to kind of be like, hey, this is life. This is what it is, and through it we can give God the glory one way or another. We've been called on this path, and so instead of just taking it as something we carry inside, to kind of show others how you can maybe gracefully go through trials and tribulations, and then also be able to celebrate, comfort, share each other's burdens through the process.
Yeah, so it was hard, but it was what we were called to do. So we were going to do it, and so we started. And James Thomas, oh my goodness, was nothing short of amazing. I really continued to pray that the Lord would speak about our children. And right before we had started IVF and we were thinking about adoption, at that point, James Thomas, at 2 years old, told me that one day I would have a baby again in my belly. And I remember going out to Abe, like, what on earth? And Abe's like, you asked God to tell you that. And I feel like He's using James Thomas to do so. And I was like, okay, all right. So we started down that road. We made it public, and that's a whole long story. And you can hear more about that or go through it. We've saved all of it on Instagram and stuff like that. But it was pretty amazing to walk through that, because our first beautiful little baby ended up going to heaven. And I would have just hid in my sadness and in my pain. But because we had made it public, we had essentially to give people answers. They were waiting. They knew, like, okay, this is another test. This is what's going to happen. And because we had made it public, we had people pour themselves into our family. They brought us meals. They brought us chocolate. They came and sat with me. People who barely knew us, and I was going out to get my mail, asked if they could stop on the side of the road and hold my hand and pray with me. And it got us out of that dark place that I think would be so easy to go in. And it was incredible. And we just started getting message after message. I mean, hundreds of people reaching out to say, you don't know what your story has helped me through. And it didn't even have to be infertility related. People going through divorce, people going just through hard stuff, but to see our faith in a good God and that we would not waver no matter what the outcome was. We wanted it to be because of the Lord. If we had a baby, it was because of the Lord. If we didn't, then that was his will. And he provided that for us. And we sat in that office, and I'll never forget, the doctor said, I don't understand. This baby was the healthiest. Like, this was literally a perfect transfer, like all of these things. And Abe and I just smiled in that moment. And we said, we know, it's okay. Like, God has us, and we're going to stick with that. And so when I was growing that baby in my belly, James Thomas would come to me each day and he would say, Mama, my baby is growing today. I know my baby's growing today. Oh my goodness. And he said it was a sister. And my sister, she's having growing pains. That was the cutest one ever. He said, my baby has growing pains today, Mama. And he would sit there and talk to me. And I'll never forget, I woke up the day we found out and I looked at Abe and I said, something's different. And something's not right, but I don't want to scare James Thomas. So go to work, and I'm just gonna go about my day, and it's okay. And my 2-year-old son sat next to me, and he put his hand on my leg, and he said, Mama, I think God's in your belly today. And I looked at him, and I said, you know what, buddy, I think you're right. I think God's in there, and I think our baby is up with Jesus. And the next day is when we found out that that was true. And I couldn't thank God enough that in my ultimate pain, he still provided what I asked. That my sweet little first miracle softened the blow of this pain. Because that is what God does. And even when it's not the answer that we want, he's still there, and he's still good. And he was. And so we went in we had one more, because I prayed, Lord, do not give me more. These sweet babies, do not give me more than I can handle, because I'll go back and I'll get them all. And if we have 8 embryos that we could transfer, I want all of them. And my husband's, I said, just give us what we can handle and what you need. And so we ended up with 2, so we had one more. And I'll never forget, we went in and they said, I don't want you to get too excited about this. You have maybe a 3% chance that this sweet little embryo was frozen, and with all you guys have going on with your fertility issues, just please, like, don't get too excited. And I had the biggest smile on my face, and I said, oh, you don't understand our story. That's when God does big things for us, when we have those 3% chances. And sure enough, I mean, that was an incredible story on its own, but we got Rowan Joseph. And James, Rowan came into the world at 30 weeks. He was 2 pounds. He has been a Spitfire ever since. And his story, as well as James Thomas, is just one for the books. And they have been a complete testimony. And, Abe, we were looking over this incubator when Rowan was growing Rowan, we would say. And he spent 40 days in the NICU. And Abe looked over this incubator and looked at me and said, I really feel like the next one will be through adoption, which was hard, still a little for me to hear, to think we were kind of just closing the door on that chapter of our lives, but we just felt like God was really speaking. And you want me to keep going?
You've been flowing the whole time, and we're not at the start of the adoption.
We're going right now
yet, so I'm gonna let you keep rolling with it.
Okay, so I didn't promise it'd be that short. But you want the story, and this is vital to the story. So yeah, so we had Rowan, and that was wonderful. And so over 2 years ago, it really got put on my heart hugely that it was time to start this adoption process. And I just need to caveat it with, we had just purchased about a 90-year-old home that we were renovating top to bottom, literally. And Abe was in a little bit of a different mindset of what our priorities might need to be, but God just really pushed that, really imprinted that on my heart that we needed to start now.
Yeah, I would say that the other consideration besides the fixer-upper that is its own story is that we also knew that we were going to be transitioning out of the military in under a year, which seemed a little crazy to start the adoption process with some of those things considered. But
too easy. We love a good
we
challenge.
went ahead. At different points in life, you just gotta pray about it. You gotta believe in God. You gotta believe in each other. And she said, "This is what we need to do." And for us, it was never a matter of if we would, but when. I was like, you know what? At this point, things haven't really gone the way that I would have written it down on paper or planned it out myself. But if you believe that this is what God's telling you to do, then we're going to step out and we're going to do it. It was a kind of between getting the house and we're going to move. It was a big kind of financial consideration for me. Feeling as the provider, you can only do so much. And I remember talking to my dad about, like, I just don't know, like, I'm struggling with this. Like, I don't know what I want you to tell me or what I want from you, but can you just, like, speak to me something? And he was like, well, just sometimes in these situations, between your faith and if you know in your heart it's the right thing to do, just if the money wasn't a factor, what would you do? And I was like, well, I would have started this earlier. He's like, well, then I think you have your answer. You gotta step out in faith and you gotta move forward. And so that's kind of another turning point for me.
So long story short, we found the agency that we wanted, met with them, set everything up, and got the ball rolling. I'm so thankful that we did when we did, because of the community. And we lived in Alabama at the time that we had was just, oh my goodness, some of our very favorite people really walked us through the next hard steps. So I think naively we thought it wouldn't take that long, to be honest. I didn't. And so after everything and waiting, it was just this roller coaster of, we have another mom and we're going to show her your book. And we were doing domestic infant adoption, which was very out of our zone, but that's what the Lord led us to. And it was just like, is she going to pick us? And I felt like this happened every month. And it was this roller coaster of emotion and rejection after rejection is what it just kind of felt like. And we just trusted that the Lord had us in this for so many different reasons, and that we were going to be okay with that. And so, we just trusted in Him. Nothing happened. We met with a few moms face to face, which is probably one of the most intimidating situations I've been in my life, and humbling, to sit in front of these incredible women who have the highest regard from us. And it's just intimidating to sit there and basically tell them who you are, and you're saying who you are to raise their child. And that's just, it's beautiful, and it's broken, and it's devastating, and it's just redemption. It's everything in one. And so we got to walk in that together, and that was just incredible. So we did that numerous times, and then that really led us up to moving up to Indiana. And we finally, with a lot of things in between there, got matched with a mom. And we were elated. Like, is that even the right word? Like, there are no words.
I think it felt like between all the infertility, all the struggles, and then meeting with others and stuff not going kind of how we had planned, and You're like, why don't people like us? Or, you know,
No.
why is it not working out? Why is the timing not here? You know, all this different stuff, and just all these considerations, and trying to assess. It was like, okay, well, we've paid our dues, if you will, or we've gone through the trials. Like, this is the time now for us to celebrate, and we were excited and ready to start our new life in Indiana, transition out of the military, and then get our daughter and just kind of hit the ground running, of just being overjoyed with this.
It was a girl.
This exciting thing.
And so, yeah, doing a few months, we got, to meet the mom. We got to pray over this sweet growing belly. We got, it was pretty incredible. And so we got to walk in that with her. And long story short, it was to the point where we had shared with our kids, because we had to do a lot of preparations for this little girl to come home with us, and it was real. It was incredible. And so we had all the clothes, we had all the things, and as some adoptions go, we were down there. We were about to be at this hospital to pick up what we thought would be our daughter, and things changed. And any mom giving birth has the right to do that. We won't get into all the details because we want to respect and honor everybody involved. Unfortunately, there was just some stuff that came to light which made it a little bit harder. But we were broken. And Abe and I, it was probably one of the hardest drives that we had to do, is to come back home knowing that we were empty-handed, and that we had to look our boys in the face and tell them why we didn't have their baby sister. And that's part of adoption, and that's one reason we want to share this, because it's not that you hear people are adopting and then they have this baby. Some cases it truly is, but that was hard for us. And one thing that I really want to share with you is, when we asked the Lord to just guide us in this, we really felt like maybe sometimes you walk in the hard to show the love of the Lord, and that's more than enough. And so we felt like we walked in this hard zone with this mom to share the love of Jesus. And we blessed her how we felt like we could bless her, and encourage her even after, just to really hopefully set her up for success, and know that we love you. And this is your choice. This is always your choice. And we felt broken, of course. They train you, they teach you as you go through this adoption, and any adoption, that if you are at that place where you are ready to bring this child home and you don't, you literally feel a loss. And I would say it very much felt like a loss to me.
Yeah, I think the challenge was, I don't know, it's kind of, I try and protect our family, and I was pretty kind of reserved about the process, just trying to protect in case anything changed. And so when we got the call and we were driving a couple hours to the hospital, it was like a turning point on the way there, where we were just being extra excited and just celebrating. We stopped at a place on the way. We were just telling everybody we saw, hey, we're going to pick up our daughter today. It was just I don't know. It was just something so new, something so awesome and amazing for us. And then to kind of sit in the hospital parking lot and be like, well,
just getting phone calls to
I don't know,
say you're not.
Maybe if I walk up there and talk to them and just be like, hey, I don't know, will something change? And ultimately decided we're going to turn the car around, we're going to drive back home, and we're going to tell our two boys that it just wasn't the right timing for us. And I think that was the hardest thing. It just kind of, talking to them, seeing their hearts and their desire for a little sister, and just telling everybody that they were going to have their little sister was just one of the most beautiful things. So I think that was kind of took the forefront of our mind. Not that it wasn't challenging for us, but I think that it's just natural to think about, your kid's heart as well.
Yeah, so that was honestly devastating. And so we walked in that for a little bit. And then not long after that, I started not to feel well. And I was like, well, this is kind of different. And I ended up remembering from unpacking a bathroom closet that I had this pregnancy test, and I thought, well, let me go ahead and take this test because I'm going to go to the doctor and they're going to say, are you pregnant? So I can obviously say no and kind of cut out the middleman and not have to take the test at the doctor. And I took it, and I looked down and it just said one word instead of two, which I was never used to seeing. And I was like, no, there's no way. And I called Avon. He's in disbelief. I mean, it's long story short, it was just, I was shouting it from the rooftops. I couldn't wait.
After I go to the gas station to buy all the pregnancy tests.
He doesn't believe me. I take test after test, positive. And I'm like, oh my goodness, Lord, like this was your plan. Like this is what you led us to. And I don't know why, but I know that we love those women as well as we knew how to through being servants and through Jesus. And so this was the gift. Like this was what we were waiting for. And we were telling our family, I just couldn't help it. Like I was so excited. We were so excited like this was happening. And we were rejoicing that this was the Lord's plan. And
I just think kind of something important that was a takeaway that I'd like to kind of share with others is at the beginning with like James Thomas and the infertility, we were kind of like reserved and we were waiting to tell people until it got to the point. But at this point in our lives, we're like, hey, we're going to be open. We're going to tell everybody because you know what? If it is everything that we think that it is, like it's very exciting and we want people to celebrate with us. But if it doesn't go the way that we see, it's good to have a support group and it's good for people to know.
So beneficial.
So it's kind of a transition for us that we're going to celebrate when we can, and we're going to still, keep our eyes up when we get down in the valleys, but at least, we're going to share that, and we have those to support us and wrap their arms around us and just, continue to speak life into the situation and help change our perspective sometimes when we need to.
And it was really cool because we backtracked kind of when we would have ovulated, like when did this happen? And it was the exact day that baby girl was born. And so we just were like, oh my goodness, like
all
only
signs,
God,
all roads
like only God leads
moment.
this. And so then some time goes by and then, it just starts to happen and I start to not feel the same. And I thought, this isn't good. This isn't good. This isn't what's supposed to be happening. And we knew I'm going to my doctor and I'm, what's going on, and you still get this hope, like, oh, well, maybe these side effects are happening because of this. Like, let's not say that, you're miscarrying. Yeah, let's do all these tests. And my doctor was incredible. I remember she's praying with me in this office with me, and she knew our story, she knew our infertility journey, she knew all of it, and so she's just putting hands on me and praying for me. And she said, Amber, go home. I'm going to call you later. And I want to run a few more tests. And so she called me later and she said, okay, the hospital right next to you does not have availability. I'm going to need you to drive to go do these tests. And I remember looking at Abe and I'm like, he's home with the boys. I'm like, just stay here with the kids. I'm fine. Like, I'm just going to go. And I was like, I have to drive like farther away at this hospital I've never been to. Like, I think you just get that in the military sometimes. I think some people are still like, you do this by yourself, but I think you just get to that, like, you're home with the kids, I'm not taking them, like, it's okay. Like, it's okay. I'll be fine, and then we'll kind of handle what is to come. And so I went to this hospital, and I ended up having one of my near and dearest friends ever had said, hey, what are you doing tonight? And I said, well, I'm not going to be home that you can come over, but if you want to meet me at this hospital. And she literally jumped in her car, and I'll never forget, met me there. And then Abe's mom and sister ended up coming, and we're in this hospital room, and they're doing these tests, and they said, I am so sorry that you basically had to come all the way here, and that, you're doing all these testings, but what you think is happening is basically happening. And I'm sitting in this ER, and I'm almost just kind of tuning it out because my husband's not there, and I know that we'll emotionally deal with this together. And so I just, you just hear them say that the miracle that you thought was really happening is now no longer a part of you inside. And I never will forget, I walked out of these emergency room doors, and I knew I just needed to make it to my car, and then I could lose it. And I walked out the doors, and I sat in my car, and I just cried the whole entire way home. And I thought, I am now going to walk into this house to tell my husband that we also have to tell our kids that this baby is now with Jesus. And why is this happening? But I know that God is good. And I just felt like, Lord, like I cried my whole way home, just, you know, a month or so, like to tell my kids, like, I'm so sorry, this isn't the time. And now I'm bawling my eyes out going home to once again say, I'm so sorry, this isn't the time. And our baby is with Jesus. And as hard as that blow was, it was a little easier to know that if you're, and this is what we told our kids, if you're not going to be with us, if this little baby is not going to be with us here, there is no better place for this baby to be than in the arms of Jesus. And that is what we preach. That is what we will continue to believe. But it doesn't mean it wasn't hard. It doesn't mean that we didn't feel in that moment like, we're going to take a knee. We need to heal before we can be beneficial to anyone else. And that's what we did.
Yeah, I mean, I think what made it easier was it was just something we didn't expect. It was kind of just like this exciting thing that we didn't expect, and maybe just for those days that we had that, it was just amazing, you know. And then when we found out that it wasn't the case, I mean, yeah, I was like, that just kind of seemed like unnecessary a little bit. Like why do we need to take that test and even like know and anything else? But it just didn't make sense. And then why is she going to this hospital that's not even like down the street? Now she's got to be there by herself and go through this. Like it just didn't make sense. But at the same time, I can look around, I can look at Amber, I can look at our boys and be like, you know, not all this makes sense either. But, you know, I'm blessed with more than I ever deserve, ever could need, and I'm just thankful for it. So we're just going to, you know, take a knee for a minute.
A hot minute.
You know, get together as a family, just circle up a little bit, rebuild our foundation some, and then kind of see what the next steps are that we should take.
Yeah, so that's exactly what we did. We took months, and we just loved each other well. And Abe and I just really got this amazing perspective from the Lord that, like, we don't even deserve the 2 boys that we have. So anything above that, I mean, it's just like, oh my gosh, like, you know, the Lord is just so kind and so good, and he never left us in that. We never felt abandoned, and we trusted in him. And so we had still had our adoption agency. You know, we were still going. We hadn't made a new book to be shown. We really weren't necessarily an active family. But we knew that our profile was online, but they always told us, like, people don't look at profiles, so we really need you to update your book. And we started to kind of update the book, and then we would stop. And then we would kind of update, and then we would stop.
Yeah, we were also trying to figure out, you know, because when you enter adoption, you can do domestic, you can do international, or you can do foster care. You're like, well, while we're in this, maybe like, you know, God's just kind of recalibrating us to look at every venue. Maybe we kind of missed something before. Let's figure out, is domestic adoption the direction that our family is supposed to be on? Maybe this is, you know, providing us there, because we had friends who were in the domestic adoption program, and then they ended up changing to international and then getting a baby and all this stuff. So we're just considering all these things, trying to figure out, like, hey, what can we learn from this? How can we continue to move forward? And so we kept like inching towards getting our book back out there, but we just, I don't know, there's something, we didn't really like talk about it every single day. I think it was just something that we kind of felt, but we just didn't keep moving forward at the time. Right,
and we just really tried to embrace our family of 4. And so that was amazing. And so we just walked in our grief like we needed to, and we healed how we needed to. And we appreciated a lot, honestly, of what we walked in to get to this new place of appreciation of where we were. And I'll never forget. So we just kept seeking the Lord, and, you know, you tell us what to do. And our adoption social worker had contacted me on Tuesday and said, hey, you know, just checking in with you guys. We haven't seen your book. What's going on? And I messaged her back and I said, I know, I'm really sorry. We actually are doing wonderful. We're in a really good place, and I'm really gonna try and get our book. Like I think, you know, I'm really gonna try and get our book done.
But we had also been talking at the time, and you know, it was one of those like beautiful days outside. We've been playing with the boys, and we were kind of like, you know,
I know.
I've been asking God, like, if a bigger family is not something like you will for me right now, or it's something down the road, just like kind of like dampen that in my heart a little bit, just so that I can really be content, really be, you know, joyful about what we do have. And so we were kind of talking about like how happy we were, and maybe family of two boys, you know, it's more than we deserve by far. So we just need to be happy in that and continue to see like what the next thing is. So we're having these conversations in the midst of trying to figure out if we need to make these book updates and everything else.
Right. I know. So yeah, so that was amazing. And then that evening I had a missed call, which if you are actively in the adoption world, you do not miss any phone call, because you just don't know who it is and what this could be. But we just didn't feel like we were. And so, you know, the call went to voicemail and I thought nothing of it. And then I looked at my messages, and it types my messages out as well. And Abe was about to go do something with the boys, and it said, hi, this is so-and-so from your adoption agency. There's a mom who has selected your family. And I looked at Abe and I said, get the boys busy and come back out here as fast as you can. And I couldn't wait. So I ended up calling our social worker back immediately, and I have her on the phone, and Abe wasn't out there yet. And she just said, Amber, you know, this is who I am. I'm with your agency, and there's been a mom who has selected you. And I said, okay. And she said, and she just delivered. And I lost it. I just started bawling. And my husband came out and I said, I have to say it again. I can't even tell what's going on. And I hand him the phone, and he's so confused, kind of still like, what? And she said it again, and she said, I'm so-and-so, I'm from your agency, and blah, blah. And he's like, oh, okay. Like, what on earth? And we're literally just sitting there crying and talking to this social worker and praying for this mom simultaneously, and all of these things, because we desire an open adoption, and we love and just, again, have the highest regard for these moms. And, you know, and she's telling us about this baby, and this seems so surreal, like literally seems so surreal, from all of the no's and all of the heartache and everything. And I remember we had talked to her for probably 10 or 15 minutes. It seemed like hours. And I said, I'm so sorry. I have to ask you, what is the baby? And she said, oh, I'm so sorry. It's a little girl. And I'm then just bawling more, that this is real, and that, you know, in my tears, I think it's important to know that those aren't just tears of pure joy. Those aren't just tears of like, thank you, God. But those are so many tears for this woman who has selflessly enough found it in her heart to choose us, which is the most humbling thing that will probably ever happen to us in our lives, to know that she sees us fit to raise the child that she brought into this world. And in the adoption world, I think we need so much more of that, because there's so many things, and we'll do that for a different video. But I think what's important to know is that you can have this incredible amount of joy simultaneously with this huge heartbreak. And that's what we felt with the first loss that we felt like we had. And that's what we felt like with the second loss that we had. And that's just what that is. And that is adoption. You just kind of feel all those things. So we're crying, and we're sitting there, and she said, okay, so, and this, any mom in Indiana, and actually some other states, really could have seen our online profile, and that's how she saw it, because of the Lord. We did not have a book, or she would not have seen our family, but because of how everything played out, and we're choosing not to really share a bunch of that stuff, just out of respect.
But yeah, I mean, I guess I should say this. We didn't have our book. We didn't complete our book. We had this online profile that we did when we first started the process, And so that's what she saw. And the only reason why she saw it was due to all the quarantines and everything that was going on from COVID-19 and the scare that everything was having and the impact. Because in any other circumstance, if it was a week before, if it was at some point in the future outside of this time, the social worker would have came in, dropped down a stack of books and been like, here's the families for you to look at. And then that's how it goes, basically, since they've been doing open adoptions. And so it was just something that we couldn't control, something that is a terrible thing for a lot of people. Ultimately, for us in the moment was she was forced to go online, and that's how she saw her family. And in any other circumstance, she may have never even known who we were.
But because the Lord is in control of everything, and bigger than disease and sickness and all of that, you know, this just played out into his plan, and he made something so terrible for so many people, and he is using it for good. And the amount of messages I've gotten from so many of you of how much hope that she's given you guys, it's just, oh my gosh. So it was incredible, and a lot of things for the story. Like I said, we're not choosing to share just out of respect for this amazing birth mom who we love and adore, and we'll continue to have a relationship with her. We're very blessed to have her as well. We always said we wanted a package deal. We didn't just want a baby added, we want this mom. And so she's incredible. And so basically, we got that call and they said, okay, so how everything is looking is you'll come to the hospital Thursday. So this was Tuesday night. And so we started getting stuff together, and we were very cautiously optimistic. But we got stuff together, and we were just like, okay, like this is happening, this is what we're gonna do. And by the next day, less than 24 hours, she was in our arms, and she was our daughter before she turned 1 day old. And one of the most amazing pieces of that was the social worker had said on the phone, okay, I'm going to tell you where she delivered, and you can select us from, like I said, Indiana, but also other surrounding states could also potentially selected our family if we had books out there. And she said, okay, it's this hospital, I don't know how far it is from you. And Abe looked it up, and I said, I know that hospital. Why do I know that hospital? And I just started crying again. And Abe's just on Google Maps, like looking this up. And I said, I know that hospital because that's the hospital that they made me go to find out that my baby went to heaven. And now we're going to drive to that hospital to go pick up our daughter. And you guys, only the Lord does that. Only the Lord can redeem such a heartbreaking situation and bring you out to something like this. And I remember walking out of those ER doors in pieces, literal pieces, that I just felt like, what is going on in my life? And I know God is good, but what is happening? And when they called us, they said, you have to go through the ER because of the quarantine. So go through the ER and we will come get you and we will bring you up to her. And I thought, I walked out those ER doors and shattered, completely shattered. And now I'm going to be walking through those ER doors to pick up our daughter, like our daughter that we have waited years to say, this is our daughter, and to be able to share with our sons. And I could talk about every moment in between all of that, and maybe we'll do another video of that sometime. But that is just how God works. God works in ways, and I think it is so important, and we probably should have started with this, but before we signed up with our adoption agency, Abe said, Amber, I really feel like we're going to be the people that get a phone call and say, this beautiful baby has been born, we need you to come to the hospital. And I was like, well, wouldn't that be nice? Like, that would just be so amazing if that's what would happen. And when all these other things happened, he kept saying, I really felt like we were just going to be the people. And God puts things on your heart. Before I had Rowan, God put on my heart that one day, no matter if a baby came from me or someone else, that we would have a daughter that looked like Abe, that had dark hair. And just the beauty of this little girl is always in my head. And when she sent me the pictures, and I'm screaming on the phone. Abe had gone into work that day to get everything organized to then not be at work. And I said, oh my gosh, Like, I'm literally screaming. He's like, do you want me to give you a minute? And I'm like, she has dark hair. She's, oh my gosh, like, it's just a lot.
Yeah, well, I mean, like Amber said, we got the call Tuesday night, and we're told, like, because of the quarantine and all these things, Thursday night, like, around 6 p.m. is the first time you're going to be able to come to the hospital, and that will be to get her. So, like, okay, well, let's, like, kind of get our affairs in order, like, clean the house, do all these things, get ready to go. And about 12 hours after that, I got another phone call. I was like, hey, you guys can come this afternoon, and all the papers are going to be signed, and she'll be yours. And it was just, like, this surreal, like, oh, my goodness, like, it's amazing. And so we came back. We still hadn't told the boys yet because we were, again, trying to protect them, knowing that things could change even at the last minute. But she was already there, so it was just now a matter of time from our perspective. And as we were, like, loading up the car to walk out, Amber got a call that said, hey, the papers are signed, and your daughter's here at the hospital waiting for you as soon as you can get here. And I don't know, even in this moment, it still doesn't feel fully real. It's just amazing to think about the timing, the sequence of events, everything, the entire journey and the process that's got us here. And we don't know fully how our involvement with the expectant moms before, or in considerations like rethinking about international, about foster care and all these other things, how that's going to tie into our future and what it's going to look like. But we do know that in this moment, and what we have with our daughter and our two sons is, you know, even in the trials, even in the hard times, you know, if you keep your eyes up, if you continue to know who gives the good gifts, where your help comes from, then you will, if you believe, you can be, you can overcome. And God wants what's best for you. And the timing and everything, kind of looking back how everything went, was like, this is what it was supposed to be. This is what it was always supposed to be. And although if you asked me a week ago if this is what was supposed to happen, I'd probably been like, you know what, I think we're okay, you know, maybe I think we're good. But God, you know, it's like one of my favorite things in the Bible is but God, and He just stepped in and changed everything again, and now we have this little girl, and it's amazing.
Perfectly.
I'm also terrified to be a girl dad, but that's a different topic. But it's she's beautiful, and it's amazing.
She's incredible. Yeah, she is. So that is, believe it or not, the short version of how Amelia June came to be a part of our family, and how amazingly incredible and kind that God is, even in these times that we're living in right now, that there is good happening. And sometimes you might have to look a little bit harder, but there is really good happening. And I know from what I have seen, even outside of my situation, so many good things that are going to come out of this. And so, yeah, now let's go get her. Let's show her. So we just want to say thank you so much for all of your prayers.
And our baby sister.
For getting our baby sister to us. Do you want to say something, Rowan? What?
Thank you for me, baby sister.
Thank you for all the prayers and encouragement along the way.
Can you give her a kiss?
Whoa.
That's really sweet. Say, love you, baby sister.
Love you, baby sister. Love you. Love you, baby sister. I did that, Mom.
Her does.
Love you, baby sister.
Oh.
Bye.
Boys, what are we doing?
Waiting for our baby sister that we're adopting.
Ro, is that what you're doing? Can you tell me her name?
Emma June. And Amelia June.
Are you going to kiss her cheeks? And who's going to change her diapers?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Oh, it has been years. Like, since Alabama, we've been waiting. Okay.
Can you believe it's really happening?
No, I can't.
Who's that?
Right here.
I'm standing outside now.
Rowie, we brought you something. You want to see? Okay, let's open it up.
Sweet Amelia, how long my restless arms have ached for you. Here on the ocean's edge I wait for you.
Oh wait, go wash your hands really fast so you can love her.
Sunday child, a letter in July.
Oh, I love our hearts.
And I wanna take
How's it feel?
Sweet Amelia, I pray tonight that I could be the one to show you love like you have never
Growing on the couch.
known. Where do you sleep tonight?
Go back.
Who holds you when you cry? And I wanna take you home. Sweet Amelia, how I have somehow loved you all my life. And I wanna take you in my arms tonight. Your picture in the post, and the days are coming close.
Oh.
And I wanna take you home. Sweet Amelia, your name is like a song I've known before.
Now she's squeezing it real
When I first saw you coming through the door, washed in like a tide from across 1,000 miles. And I wanna take you home. Sweet Amelia, let's go to Paris for an afternoon. And I wish that I could show the world to you. Ladies in red, take you on an airplane. I wanna take you home.
I know that James Thomas and I were talking, and James Thomas said, we've been waiting for years.
Sweet Amelia, I'll taste the salt of these longing tears, the bitter cup that brings communion. Our stories tied like
She's ready to snuggle you, Grammy.
all the wonder and the hope. I wanna take you home. Sweet Amelia, I'm looking northwest in the sky tonight. Dreams of your almond face, your pretty dress of lace. We paint the walls in pink. I am standing on the brink. Across the waters I will